I need people to realize that, like, liking a writer doesn't mean that you have to excuse, like, the terrible actions of them. Like, I like John Byrne. That doesn't mean I'm gonna defend the fact that he's a little bit racist. I call him out for the racism all the time. Just because a writer is good doesn't mean you don't call out the racism. I'm looking at you, Grant Morrison fans! Welcome back to another episode of Last Week in Comics, where I talk about the last week in comics. It's been a week for me. My rearview mirror fell off. Now, let's start talking about the books that I actually read this week. So, the big release for at least DC is Superman Unlimited by Dan Slott. I like the writing style of some pretty awful authors. Dan Slott is unfortunately included in that list. So Superman Unlimited is essentially, like, for the most part, it is just, like, kind of like a recap of Superman's origin and all the stuff that happened leading up to where he is currently in the continuity of comics, which I greatly appreciate because I feel like Superman Unlimited specifically is a book that a lot of new Superman fans are going to kind of grab onto, since the current ongoing is at, like, 28 issues, I believe. So it's a nice, like, number one to kind of, like, start off the season without having to reboot the main Superman title, which I always appreciate because rebooting titles kind of throws them into a weird state. But so, for the most part, it is kind of like a recapping issue, with the end being, like, oh, hey, Kryptonite? Fucking everywhere now. It is no longer a limited resource. So that's basically where we're going into with Superman Unlimited. And, like, the thing about Dan Slott as a writer is that he's really good when you give him these characters. Or no, he's better than he normally is when you give him these characters with, like, a long-lasting history and a lot of, like, respect and, like, genre-defining moments. You know? Like, as much as people try and, like, say that his Fantastic Four run is bad, his Fantastic Four run is only bad because the standard for Fantastic Four runs is so fucking high that, like, or no, the standard for Fantastic Four runs is so fucking high that even, like, a mediocre run, like, if the Fantastic Four run was done for any other character, it would be considered, like, an okay run. But, like, because it's the Fantastic Four and, like, the worst we've had is Miller, like, Miller's, like, the only, like, one bad writer that Fantastic Four has ever gotten. Dan Slott seems, like, awful in comparison to, like, the stacked lineup of, like, Kirby, Lee, North, Wade. I'm not saying Hickman. Hickman's run fucking sucks. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. But he's very good with, like, these long-lasting characters that he has, like, a very clear respect and love for, and, like, that's kind of what his Superman is feeling like to me. It feels like someone finally, like, getting, like, their dream achievement of writing Superman, which I cannot say that for a lot of writers that are currently in the comic book spaces. A lot of them, for them, like, their dream achievement is writing, like, Spider-Man or Batman. Dan Slott seems like one of the few people left in comics who his lifetime goal was to write Superman, and he has now reached that lifetime goal, and he's having a blast. I especially like the introduction where, like, you kind of do, like, a montage of, like, oh, you know, like, first off, Dan Slott loves the civilian supporting cast, so we do get to see the Daily Bugle back, like, the full Daily Bugle gang back again, which is crazy, and I appreciate that. I say Dan Slott, like, civilian supporting cast. I'm also talking about the fact that he's one of the few writers who brought back Wyatt Wingfoot. Okay? You know, you start with this, and then, you know, you have Clark have to leave during Lois's, like, this big, like, joint venture. Most other writers would try and, like, do something where it's like, oh, this is a point of conflict for them. But, like, Dan Slott gets it, you know? So it's like, Lois is like, it's fine. You know, he's our Superman writer. Wherever he goes, Superman is. You know? And, like, then we get, this nice montage of, like, Superman, like, saving people, doing, like, a lot of community service while he's saving people. Like, the first, like, robbery he stops, the person stops him and says, like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I just wanted to say thank you for, like, saving my grandmother or, like, my family member at this previous time. And Superman's like, it's alright, dude. It's cool. And then, like, someone was, like, singing a song about Superman, and he's like, That's the best one I've ever heard. It's so, like, down to earth and lovely, and, like, especially for something that, like, I initially am a little bit worried about, because having kryptonite be a non-natural resource is kind of weird, but, like, Dan Slott does it in such a way where you can tell that this is being written not by someone who wants Superman to be, like, Omni-Man, Homelander, who's doing the injustice route of Superman. No, this is someone who really loves and appreciates Superman for who he is as a character. Maybe James Gunn, instead of consulting fucking Thomas, I think Superman is boring King, you should be talking to Dan Slott. Which is crazy, I have to say that. You know, kryptonite's now a non-natural resource. Superman seems to have some sort of immunity behind it because he was the one who stopped it. I could have gone without the golden Superman thing. I think it's kind of cheap to make Superman not be affected by this. Clearly, like, we all know that this event's gonna go away in, like, a couple months. You know, once this run ends, it's probably gonna return to the status quo. So I kind of wish that they would have also had Superman be affected by the large output of kryptonite that we see Supergirl and Khan are affected by. But, like, also, I feel like something's gonna happen, you know? So I might be counting my chickens a little too early. It's a good book. I'm probably gonna keep following it to some extent. On TikTok, I've kind of been doing this thing where I'm limiting, like, the comics I, like, talk about. And it really only is just because I feel like I don't have enough to say about, like, you know, 4 issues deep. So I would rather save it for this show because I have a lot more fun doing it. But anyway, Superman Unlimited, it's good. I like it. I don't know what anyone expected me to say about this. Do you see how many fucking Wyatt Wingfoots I have? Do we need to pull out my certification of, being the Wyatt Wingfoot person? This is my certification card for that.
Boo! Go to horny jail.
I'm not going to horny jail. That is to say about Dan Slott, I don't read his She-Hulk run. That run doesn't exist to me, except for the one time that Wyatt gets brought up. Maybe I just appreciate Dan Slott because he likes Wyatt Wingfoot. Alright, continuing books I'm actually keeping up with. I was requested to talk about this on TikTok. I am probably going to re-upload, like, this segment onto TikTok eventually to kind of help promote the channel. But Zatanna issue 4 just came out, and quite honestly, Zatanna's mini is probably the only, like, mini we've had so far where I don't feel like I'm being rushed or that it's, like, too much for, like, one mini. Like, it's very, like, grounded in the fact that, yeah, we only have 6 issues to tell this story. We're gonna fucking do it, and it's gonna be well-paced. So, big overarching plot. Lady White and Brother Black? I think that's what he's called. I'm not really keeping up with the main plot of Zatanna. They've kidnapped Blue Devil. They, of course, still have Adam's body, and Zatanna is going to kind of she's trying to figure out some way to stop them. She, of course, finds out that Sword's a red herring, as we kind of figured. And it seems like the next issue we're going to start getting more into Zatanna's past, specifically surrounding her mother that we've been seeing in the introduction of all these books to kind of, like, this one actually, like, kind of, like, explains Blue Devil's, like, deal in the beginning, which I appreciate, because I think it's fun when you do it as a narrative device inside of the comic to help keep people up to speed. I think that's great. I also think it's very new reader friendly without being too heavy on, like, you know, being too repetitive for people who are familiar with the character. I like that. We should keep doing that. But, you know, so you have that, like, kind of all going on. And, like, Zatanna's figuring out how to stop all of this. You know, she fucking pulls the sword out at the end. Again, fucking amazing art by Jamal Campbell. I don't know what it is with the 2 Campbells at DC, you know, both Sophie and Jamal, but they're both, like, double threats. I recommend to just check this book out for the art alone. Like, this is, like, magnificent. But, like, yeah, it's like Zatanna's support system building them up, you know, being like, oh, you know, have you really tried everything? I still not really keeping up with the plot. Going back to kind of, like, my main thoughts about, like, this part in the mini, because we are nearing the end, we're on issue 4 out of, like, 6, I believe. And this is probably the first time in, like, a DC mini I don't want to say, I can't say that, like, I feel like I'm being rushed. It feels perfectly paced throughout. They know how many issues that they have left. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out why that is. And I think it's simply that, like, I feel like this book was pitched as a 6th issue versus, like, stuff like The Question All Along the Watchtower. It's clear that this is a, you know, that book was a, like, a question ongoing, like, at least 12 issues that then got pushed back to 6. And maybe Zatanna's more in, like, the same vein of, like, Blue Beetle Graduation Day. Like, I don't think Graduation Day is rushed. Like, I didn't think that was rushed. So maybe if this goes well, then they'll just, like, extend it and then, or, like, reboot it into, like, a new title and then have it be there for only 11 issues. I'm still a little bit mad about Blue Beetle Graduation Day getting canceled, especially because why the fuck is Dan Garrett back? Like, this book is good, but, like, my opinion of it is that I just need everyone to read it. Like, you just have to, like, me kind of giving my thoughts about it are, you need to fucking read this book. If you don't take anything else from what I say today, take that one thing. Read Zatanna right now. I've also been probably keeping that book in whatever place it is, because I buy, like, 5 different variants, like, every single fucking issue. I have to go to my local comic book shop later today, and, like, I'm a little bit worried. Let's talk about New Gods issue 6? I think I was lightly keeping up with New Gods. Of course, like, the big thing that happened in there is Light Ray's now dead, Orion's boyfriend is now dead. The, like, first part of this book is so beautifully drawn and illustrated. It's another case of you just need to read this fucking book for yourself. I think it was so just, like, breathtaking. And then, like, also, like, the main point that they're getting at is Light Ray is asking, like, what actually happens when we die? And then we kind of get a little bit of backstory of Light Ray, how, he can almost, like, resurrect himself, or he has in the past. And Highfather seems like on his deathbed. They're heading to Earth. They crash into whatever the fuck happened the last issue with, like, Superman showing up and stopping Orion. I don't know. Just with New Gods, like, my opinion has always been Ram V's writing is excellent. I don't know what's going on half the time. If you want someone who actually knows what's going on in New Gods right now, go check out, like, Kirby's channel. He does, like, the Mother Box news with, like, Ram V every week. Like, Ram V's on his fucking show. Oh, why haven't I tried to get Ryan North on here? Wink. Here's my, like, little, like, stipulation with, like, the New Gods is that, like, I feel like what Ram V said, like, told us the book was about at the beginning is very different than what the book's actually about. Because Ram V did mention, like, a lot more about Mr. Miracle and, like, Big Barda and, like, Mr. Miracle dealing with, like, fatherhood in, like, vice versa with, like, Orion and Highfather. But that's not what the book is about. The book is Orion. The book is all about Orion. And I feel like if I knew that at the beginning, my reviews of it would be a lot more high, like, intention. Because I do really like the Orion stuff, but it took us a little bit to get here. I think giving Light Ray this much of a spotlight right now is great. Again, I feel like this book was just pitched weird to people. Like, I feel like in the press releases, they were trying to hit, like, that crowd of people who really like Mr. Miracle by Thomas King, not realizing that, like, people who like Mr. Miracle by Thomas King don't like New Gods. And people who like New Gods don't like Mr. Miracle by Tom King. The people who read Mr. Miracle by Tom King are people who have never read a fucking Jack Kirby book in their lives, because why the fuck do you think that this is the best Mr. Miracle book? What the fuck are you guys on? I feel like New Gods is a book that was just pitched badly when it should be pitched as, we're fucking doing the same shit that Kirby did in his original New Gods, and it's great. I like it more as that, because Jack Kirby's Mr. Miracle is very different than, like, Jack Kirby's, like, New Gods and, like, this current New God. You cannot say that New Gods book is about Mr. Miracle. They're not. They never are. Because he's not technically a New God. It's a whole mess. Whole mess. But anyway, New Gods. I think it's really good. I feel like for people who don't really like the older style of, like, how comics are written, Well, actually, no. I think anyone who doesn't like the older style of how comics are written isn't gonna like any New Gods stuff. This is high concept fantasy, and I love it. It's weird because I'm reading, like, a book, like, an actual, like, book, called The Iron Widow, and I'm struggling through it. But I feel like it's because whenever I read high fantasy, it's mostly in comic books, and with that, you get to, like, see things. And so because I'm not seeing things, I'm just it's hard for me. Okay, and I want to talk about some funny stuff that happened in the DC X Sonic crossover. I haven't been keeping up with it the same way a lot of other people have, but also it's written for a much younger age demographic than a lot of other comics, so it's very easy to, like, just grab onto an issue. Because, like, this one is, like, the big one where, like, oh, they're now taking over for the Justice League. And it has some adorable moments. I really like the one where Amy Rose is, like, hanging out with, like, Hawkgirl, which isn't really Hawkgirl, that's Hawkwoman. They use the DCAU version, which I didn't like, but that she's hanging out with, like, other female heroes, and she gets to be a little silly goofy with it, while also beating the shit out of people. I love that. I also love the joke that Silver made with the Green Lanterns, where he's like, oh, you're just gonna have to call one of the other Earth Lanterns, like Hal, or Kyle, or Guy, or Simon, or Jessica, or Joe. And although probably my favorite one is the fucking Knuckles. So Knuckles gets invited to Lex Luthor's house. Lex Luthor's like, oh, do you share Superman's weaknesses too? And he opens up a box and the green Chaos Emerald is there. And Knuckles is like, oh, you found it. Great. And Luthor's like, oh, that's what it was? And then Knuckles leaves. Okay, and then he does, like, this little loop-de-loop and flies back in and is like, you were trying to fucking kill me, weren't you? You thought this was kryptonite. It was the funniest fucking thing. Here's the thing about, like, the DC crossovers, like, we had similar kind of, like, gags in, like, the Godzilla X Kong one that they did, like, I think, like, a year back, like, where Kong kills Guy Gardner and no one cares. I think, like, these little, like, in-jokes for the fans are so fucking funny, and it makes, like, the crossovers that they do even more charming. I love this book. I cannot wait, because my niece has been recently getting into the Sonic comics. I bought her, like, one of the first trades. She's getting really into it as, like, a book. So I really can't wait to, like, when this eventually gets put into a trade so I can buy it for her and give it to her. Because I think she's gonna love it. I love the Sonic comics. They're great. I think having more comics for, like, a, like, middle school demographic is great. Especially when, like, these companies realize, like, oh, we're not gonna sell more on single issues, we're gonna sell more on the trades, but we're still gonna publish the single issue. I think it's all great. I love this crossover. I think it's great. Allegedly, they leaked plushies, potential, like, crossover, like, like, the characters and, like, all their Justice League outfits. Like, they leaked plushies for them, and I'm getting Amy Rose as Wonder Woman, like, immediately. Like, there's no doubt in my mind about it. I need that. I need that in my life. I think that's kind of it for the books I've read, so here's all the books that came out this week that you should maybe read, depending on what I say about them. I didn't read them, though, but just depending on what I heard online. Absolute Flash #3 also came out this week. I know that Absolute Flash has its fans. It seems like the big, like, thing about this issue is, he's now friends with a monkey.
You saved me. Why?
Monkey.
Like, that monkey that we kept on seeing after all of these issues, like, okay. I should probably keep back up with this. This week was busy. Next up we have Catwoman #76. I don't know what's happening in Catwoman, but it seems like everyone's pretty alright with it. Again, sometimes the too close to Batman books I don't really appreciate, but I know that in order for a ongoing to have 76 issues consistently, that's pretty impressive. It's It's good. Then we have Nightwing 126. It seems like everyone's still happy with the changes as Waters has made to the book overall. It's no longer having the other Thomas's influences on it. It's been, I think it's been a great time for Nightwing fans specifically. Unfortunately, I'm just not one of them. Okay, so Teen Titans issue 23 came out this week, and it kind of cements the return of Tara's alive again. Okay, so I forgot about this. So the main thing I heard about this is Starfire gets a new suit, okay? And everyone's like, I wish that it was just this suit with the big hair back. And I hold that opinion. But the really big thing that came out of this book is, of course, the return of Tara. I don't think any writer currently in comics has the emotional capability to truly deal with Tara as a character again. So I would rather her stay dead. Tara is a victim of human trafficking. She is a child sexual assault victim, but no one decides to treat her with in that regard. I think the best we got was Titans 03 kind of doing it, but no writer at DC has truly understood what happened to Tara as a bad thing. Not even George Perez, who initially worked on it, or maybe it was the other writer for Titans, but the people who worked on the Judas contract even blame Tara for her actions. And it feels really awful to me that this character is she's dragged through the mud too much, and it's I don't like that they brought her back. I don't like that they brought her back, especially because they're still selling Slade on fucking covers, and I feel like that's overall bad. Again, no writer at DC has the emotional capacity to deal with Tara as a character, so until that happens, she needs to not be in comics. I need DC to literally deny every single request to have her until they get someone who's actually able to deal with the subjects surrounding her. Okay, this is a book that no one should fucking read at all. But, it's Wonder Woman by the hack Thomas King. What controversies did Thomas get into this week? I think the big one is, making Wonder Woman too much about men again. Jesus! Does he not understand why the 9-panel thing works? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this. All it is 9 panels, like you're fucking Watchmen, but you don't understand why that worked for Watchmen. These panels make me uncomfortable, but it's not, because you're trying to say anything about the world. It's because you're fucking... the fucking dialogue's awful.
Because you have bad formatting.
Because you have bad formatting. You're trying to make Wonder Bat happen when... God, can we stop making Wonder Woman about men? Get fucking Mariko Tamaki back on the book. Get fucking literally any woman. Any woman. Don't fucking read Wonder Woman by Thomas King. The fact that it is getting nominated for an Eisner shows how fucking meaningless the Eisners are. Fucking, if I was Eisner, the guy who they named it after, yeah, no, if I was him, I would fucking rise up from my grave, and I would beat the shit out of whoever keeps on nominating Thomas. Fuck Tom King. Okay, anyway, in good news, Batman and Superman World's Finest, issue 39. So the big thing about this one is, it's kind of that, We Are Yesterday crossover. So, Lois from current timeline gets sent back to the World's Finest past, which, if you didn't know about World's Finest, it takes place specifically in the Silver Age of DC. So Supergirl's there, Dick's still Robin, So, they did have the Batman kind of time traveling stuff wasn't that good. It was oh, we miss Alfred. Which, honestly, I'm still kind of shocked that Alfred has been able to stay dead in comics for this long. I feel like something might change once the DC EU gets to Batman, but, for right now, Alfred's staying dead, and I think that's kind of shocking. But also, I think it makes for a lot of good character moments, so I almost want him to stay dead. But, the big thing I keep on saying is the fucking, that, I don't think Lois fully, understands that she's in the past, And so she says something about, like, if you see our son, tell him to bring his boyfriend. Which then a lot of the J fans were like, that like implies that, like, Clark knew his son was into men. Like from birth. And I think it's so funny. It's so funny, especially considering the first time that that Clark met Jay is like, oh, hi, you wanna come to dinner? I fucking love Jay Nakamura. Keep Jay Nakamura's name out your fucking mouths. He's great. I love him. It was fun. It was a fun crossover. Okay, next we have Batman and Robin Year 1, Issue 7. It's been going good. Zach seems to really like it.
I'm not caught up with it.
You're not caught up with it right now, but it's Mark Waid and Chris Sammy. It's always gonna be good. If you're not already up to the series right now, because it is in 7 out of 12 issues, I recommend getting the trade when it inevitably gets published. It's gonna be great. Then we have Detective Comics 1097. Surprisingly enough, the other Terrible Thomas, the Terrible Thomas with 2 T's, Thomas Taylor, he is not, his Detective Comics, had, that initial, it's Tom Taylor, but it doesn't seem like he's keeping up with the same kind of vitriol that got people to read his comics and got people to pay money for them. So I don't think his Detective Comics run is gonna happen for much longer. I don't hate him as much as I do Thomas King, but I still hate him. He is racist. Alright, now we're going to the indies. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, so from Image, I do want to shout out Rogue Sun. Rogue Sun seems to be either the same team as Radiant Black, or it's a similar team who's doing it. I keep on seeing the variants for it. It very clearly comes from people who love comics as a medium, which I always appreciate. I just really need to catch up to it, because again, it's 27 issues in, but go check it out. Then from IDW, we have Mothra, Queen of Monsters, issue 3. I've heard amazing things about this book. I think everyone should check out the Godzilla comics that IDW publishes. They're all fucking great. I love Godzilla Skate or Die. I need to go back and, do a full review of it, because unfortunately that book kind of fell in the time between, me doing comic book reviews all the time, and also Last Week in Comics starting, so I couldn't really talk about the series regularly. But I need to go back and do that. But yeah, Mothra, Queen of Monsters is great. There's lesbians in it, because Mothra is queen of the lesbians. And then we also have Star Trek Defiant. Again, all the Star Trek comics have been good. I know a lot of people, praise, the Star Wars comics. The Star Trek comics are better. Oh my god! Cody Rhodes got to be an Epic Universe?
Yay!
Oh my god! I'm sorry, but Cody Rhodes in a full suit and tie on a roller coaster is so fucking funny. From the team behind IDW Sonic, there is a new kind of, it's more like a Shonen Jump, if that makes sense to anyone who reads comics, called Spark Flame. And so it's essentially a lot of stories by these individual writers, a lot of independent stories written by them, and they're, 6-page previews of these books. My Mutual Squid, HD Squid, has read it. They have loved it. I highly recommend you checking it out, because honestly, more creator-owned pieces like this should be praised. I also think that it's really great to bring something like how manga is kind of distributed, bringing that to the West to kind of have it, because again, comics are getting expensive, so having something like Shonen Jump where it gives you these little previews and then eventually they'll get put into a trade. I think it's great that some independent comics are leaning towards that. I think it's amazing. Go check out Spark Flame if you haven't. I also have a couple of announcements. So if you've seen on Twitter, Stephanie Williams, which is one of my favorite writers, because she remembers Wyatt Wingfoot. She also is a fan of She-Hulk Ceremony. Fun fact, I found that out on Blue Sky when I tweeted at her about her parody comic of Living Single, Living Heroes, where she makes the same joke that Dwayne McDuffie does in Ceremony about calling Jen a white woman, kind of, or forgetting that Jen's white. But anyway, I digress. So she announced on her Instagram that she is doing a Wonder Woman thing. It turned out to be a webtoon called the Amazon Babysitters Club. It's called Warriors and a Wee Wonder. It's essentially the Amazon Babysitters Club, where, like, it's a bunch of, like, older Amazons taking care of a young Diana. And I think it's adorable, especially because Stephanie Williams also has announced that Diana is just as much Philippus's daughter as she is Hippolyta's, which is great. I'm so glad that we have a writer that has DC's permission who is acknowledging this. I love Stephanie Williams. I'm gonna be reviewing these, honestly. It's fucking webtoons. And then also, because apparently these seem to be geared for me specifically, they announced another one called John Kent, This Internship is My Kryptonite, which has John and Jay in it. And he's interning for the Daily Planet, and I think that's so fun. However, there was a little bit of, you know, people rightfully called out the artist for whitewashing Jay a little bit. Jay looks a lot less Asian than he does in, like, literally anything else that DC has published so far. But luckily, the artist behind it got on Twitter really quickly and was like, oh yeah, we'll look in, I appreciate the critique. I'll definitely keep this in mind as I continue drawing the series. Which is nice that, like, people are listening. Because, so fun fact about Genosha, which is where Jay's from, it's more based off of the southeastern countries that were colonized by Japan. It was actually made in a direct critique of of Japan's colonization throughout kind of like the end of World War II, even before that. So Jay is Southeast Asian, which if I'm Southeast Asian, we're not pale. I've never met a Southeast Asian who isn't, like, a little bit brown. So, it is nice that, like, instantly the artist was like, I will correct that in the future. It's great. I like this series. I think it's fun. I am impartial to Jay's new suit. I think it's a little bit darker than I would have liked it, but I still appreciate it because Jay Nakamura's in a webtoon now! Yeah, you can't say that! Can't say that about Bernard, can you? He is not Bernard. He's better. And then also with that announcement, another one, which was apparently geared for me specifically, it's called Aquaman, Yo-Ho, Hold On to Your Hook, which seems to be, I don't want to call it One Piece, but it's giving the One Piece vibe, and it's starring Jackson Hyde, which I'm a very big fan of Jackson Hyde, and it also has Dolphin in it, which I'm surprised that we're bringing back Dolphin, like, in a full webtoon, but I'm excited for this. I'm gonna be reading all three of these series, and you know what? We're gonna put it on Last Week in Comics. Because unlike Wayne I can't stand Wayne Family Adventures sometimes because it does have a lot of that, like, Batman, like, fanon nonsense happening. But, like, with all three of these series, also all being from, like, writers at DC or who have worked in the comic book industry, makes me very hopeful, especially Stephanie Williams being on that Diana one. Put Stephanie Williams on the mainline Wonder Woman book, or give her, I think she has written Nubia in the past, but give her another Nubia book. Where's Nubia? Where is she? Okay, that's kind of it for Last Week in Comics. I don't think I have any other announcements. Up here is going to be your next recommended video. Is an episode of Ash and Their Fantastic Friends, my live show I do every Saturday, 9 p.m. EST. Is it another episode of Last Week in Comics, which I do every Sunday? Is it a YouTube short? I don't know. They won't tell me. Is it a video that I haven't even made yet? Maybe. I don't know how far into the future you're watching this. Down here is the rest of the playlist for Last Week of Comics. I've been doing this since November 2024. So, if you want reviews of pretty much everything I've been following since then, it's down there. In an easily digestible video format. Although I will be honest, a lot of the early ones are a lot less good. I didn't know what I was doing back then. And then over here is the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing videos. I still have to clean up my comic book collection. I started working again, so that kind of put a wrench in things. But I'm going to start making videos about how to collect comics and how to avoid, like, what I'm currently in, which is massive piles of comics I now need to sort. But that's going to be, I'm going to do that. I have the Wyatt Wingfoot video essay. We're gonna start working on it again soon. I really need to because I've been like internalizing all my Wyatt knowledge, and it feels like I'm going to like burst, and it's bad. I'm also gonna do like a Johnny Wyatt ship week. I am the one person advocating for Wyatt Wingfoot now. So yeah, subscribe because more stuff's gonna be coming out. The longer I am home, and I'm going insane. I am going insane. We have a tiny Rip Hunter here. Do you know how weird it is to have like a tiny Rip Hunter? We also have tiny Blue and Gold. Sorry, they're back. You know this pose. And then also tiny Fire and Ice. Ooh, they're fighting. Anyway, yeah, that's it. We're done here. We're done! And cut.